That's wonderful.
All right, I'd like to call this special school committee business meeting to order. It's Monday, April 29th. Mrs. Yell, can you take the roll, please?
Mayor Reardon.
I'm here.
Sarah Holmes.
Here.
Andrew Boulder. Brian Callahan.
Here.
Brianna Higgins. Here. Kathleen Shaw. Here. Juliet Walker. Present.
All right, so we're here. We call this special meeting to take a vote on the FY25 school year budget. I'm going to turn the meeting over now to Vice Chair Hall to run through the options.
Great. Well, I'm not going to run through the options, but
Superintendent.
I'm gonna hand it over to you, Superintendent.
Well, thank you very much. Just as a follow-up from our last school committee meeting, there's a lot of dialogue on the 4 different options, and I think we were focused on that 4.5 option of the city allocation, the overall budget of a 2.99. And then it gave Mr. Littlehill and I some more time to go through the entire budget. So we're comfortable with presenting a 4.5 city allocation and overall 2.99. And I know Mr. Lillehill's here. If there's any questions, I know there were some questions from our last meeting, but we've done a lot of work in preparation for tonight.
Great. So we just get right to some questions. We got all the information last time. So yeah, Mr. Littlehill, if you don't mind standing at the mic there, we have an extra seat at the table. I'd like to start with the question. Walker.
Yeah, so we would be approving the budget by cost center, which is the page 1 of our materials, right?
Yes, it's the second one on page 1.
Yeah, okay. So that's just to be clear, because that one at the top just has a city appropriation of 4.99, but we are actually approving the cost center version.
Yes. The way we put together tonight's package is that the budget book is what we have been presenting all along, and then we still have the 4 options. Whichever option you folks choose, we'll then rip out this page and give you the updated one with the percentage on it.
And
Didn't want to make any assumptions.
And the option is not to change how we're allocating the budget between those cost centers. It's to change what the source of those funds for the overall budget will be.
Correct. We have been at the 299 since I think April 1st, and that's where we're staying. It's a matter of changing the funding sources.
Go ahead, Ms. Higgins.
Have there been any adjustments to how you're getting to that 4.5 from 4.99?
There have been no changes to the what we discussed at the last meeting in terms of funding changes. There have been some minor little tweaks within the budget itself, cleaning up a few things, but the bottom line has not changed.
So I think we don't have that in front of us, but I know you had gotten to those options by effectively, dividing by 3, right? You get like 90, 90, 90. Are you sticking with the that number coming out of school choice?
Yes.
Because I know there was some questions about do we want to use the athletics revolving account versus
So, if you don't mind, I'll just go through how we're doing. So to go from the 499 to the 475 or 474, which is a $90,000 reduction, we're going to take an additional $90,000 out of school choice. And the reason for that is that school choice this year is coming in about $740,000, which is above what we anticipated. I had originally budgeted either $500,000 or $600,000 for this year, so we're coming in at about 740. So therefore, we would use all of what we're taking in this year used in next year's budget. So that would be get the first 90,000. To get the 180,000, so a total change of 180,000 from the city's allocation to other funding sources, we would take another 10,000 out of school choice. So that would bring us up to, I think, 750 for next year. We would take another 25,000 out of the foreign student tuition line. We take another 5 out of the entitlement grants. The Title I preliminary numbers came out a while ago, and they came in slightly more than what I had budgeted, and I had budgeted an increase anyway, so I got lucky on that one. And then we took another 50,000 The other 50,000 was gonna come out of revolving funds, the athletic revolving fund. And the rationale behind that is that the revolving account for athletics has been running a good balance for the last couple of years. The COVID year, fiscal year 20 was really worked out well for revolving accounts. You know, our expenses were down. But Kyle had been planning on using some of that money for some capital projects that are happening this year, which he is doing. But we're gonna dig into that balance and bring it down probably into the neighborhood of about 200,000 by the end of next year, where we've been running at about 400,000 at the end of each year. So that's what I said last time. There are some places where we can take additional funds for fiscal year 25 that we probably won't be able to replicate it again in fiscal year 26. But, you know, we're trying to get through between 24 and 25 with some of our biggest bumps being in special education. Again, we got our district tuitions went up 14% this year, and they're going up 4.69 for next year. You know, we've got to get over those bumps. And then hopefully for fiscal year 26, it gets back to what it had been for the last 15 years or so, which was a 2 or 3% increase in the out of district tuition.
Thank you. Any
I
further questions?
just wanted to clarify that, we actually have this in our packet for the meeting, we just don't, it's not like we don't have hard copies, we did get this.
It's on the last 4 pages in that packet that you have.
Yeah, so we already, but we did, I just wanted,
The 4 options should be the last 4
okay,
pages.
but I'm just saying, we already got this, like, so other people are aware, and those watching online are aware. We got this in our packet, so it's outlined, yes.
Yeah, so again, those 4 options have not changed, the numbers have not changed. And then, of course, get down to 4.25, that'd be another 90,000, which we had at this point, used either undetermined or undefined at this point. We don't have, a funding source at this point that we're comfortable with. Yeah. But as I said, you know, things can change, you know, because we don't know what the budget's gonna look like in terms of coming out of the State House. What our circuit breaker is gonna look like next year. I expect that to go up, assuming it gets budgeted at the full 75% because of the increase in our out-of-district tuitions. And, you know, there's a lot of, you know, again, we can build a budget based on what we're assuming at this point in time. That's the best that we can do. And we've spent a lot of time on this.
Any further questions, or is anyone prepared to make a motion at this point?
I have a question, can you be clear, Superintendent, which, one you're recommending to the school committee?
I'm recommending the 4.5 out city allocation. I think, as I said, when we went through our budget a little further for the past week, and we're comfortable with that.
Anyone ready to make a motion?
Talk about how are you feeling right now, the 4.5 or 4.25, and what will the impact on your budget?
So same with what the superintendent just said, we went back this week and looked at that option, and we feel like we can make it. Yeah, wasn't what in our head where we were looking at, but I think we can make it work. And the fact that, you know, Phil and superintendent were able to give us different options where we're pulling different levers to make it work this year. I do think this is all going to catch up at some point, and I do think next year is going to be a very challenging year, just like I said last year for this year. So I'm glad we were able to keep staffing in place this year, but next year I think we're going to be probably at the same spot. And hopefully at that point we'll have more data, look at how we're doing across the board, and then hopefully put a bunch together that can really kind of pinpoint where we need help, and then also move us forward. So that's where I'm at.
Other questions? Ready to make a motion? I can do it, but I want to make sure that I do it correctly. Do you want the number from the cost center? Ms. Walker? Grand total?
Actually, I think the superintendent and the business services manager should instruct us what would be, what the most useful for them, rather than us guessing.
if we want to put it in terms of the motion, I would say we'd make a motion to approve the budget of $44,005,188 with the cost centers as Bresnahan, $8,743,600. Moline, $4,112,641. The NOC, $6,574,741. Newburyport High School, $10,945,441. System-wide, $13,628,765. Again, for a total of $44,005,188, with the funding sources as outlined in the summary, with a city allocation of 4.5%. Not a long, but I think that will cover it.
Okay, I can do that. Okay, so, motion to accept the proposed FY 25 budget, with a total of $44,005,188. That's Bresnahan, $8,473,600, Mullen,
Sorry, this correction, 8,700, 2006.
am I reading the wrong numbers?
Ms. Hall, I think you can probably just, if Ms. Yell captured what Mr. Littlehill has said, you can probably just reiterate what he said, rather than have to say it all over again.
Sorry, what would you
If
like?
you wanted, you could just say, what, as Mr. Littlehill just presented to us. We don't have to do that.
Sure, okay. Motion to accept the. Oh, I thought you wanted it to be accept. Oh, okay,
Because we adopted it. We adopted it.
okay. Motion to approve the proposed FY 25 budget as presented by Mr. Littlehill, with the 4.5% city allocation.
Second?
Discussion. Yes,
I guess my only question, the wording of the motion is that these cost center numbers, even if this passes, then they can go tomorrow and change the arrangement of dollars. They can decide that the Bresnahan needs a little bit more and do a transfer from one,
who is they?
the administration.
The
They're not stuck with these cost center numbers.
If I can interrupt for a moment. How you vote the budget, the breakdown is where it is. So if we need to move money from one school to another, we're gonna have to come back and ask for a budget transfer approval.
Like we normally,
Yes.
like a regular day.
But you know, it all depends. Some cities and towns just vote the bottom line. Some vote personnel, non-personnel. And I think last year we voted, I think it was personnel, non-personnel. I don't recall that we did it at all
Okay.
five.
Just want to clarify that.
But, you know, the superintendent and I cannot sit down and say, oh, we're gonna take $2 million out of high school and move it up to Bresnahan.
I understand that we would have to. approve
We
the
have to come
transfer
back and get
anyhow.
official approval to do that.
Yes, but if it's below X, you've been empowered to do the transfer.
We can do transfers within each cost center. That will be fine, but we cannot go across cost centers without approval from the school committee.
I just want that to be clear that those numbers can change, of course.
Well, they can change, but only with our approval. That's why the power of the school committee is to approve by cost center.
No, I understand. I'm letting the general public know that the Bresnahan may end up with less than $8,743,000. There is a chance something will shift.
Subject to our approval.
Right, but the bottom line stays the same.
That's cool. Yeah. Any other discussion?
Yeah, I just have, I mean, I appreciate that the superintendent and the manager were able to provide us with a recommendation. You know, to the mayor's point, I actually would prefer to be higher in our city appropriation. And the reason for that is because I do think that through the budget process, we did allocate to different funds so that we weren't over relying on one fund, and we're thinking ahead to the next two future potential dips in those funds. So again, I defer to the staff, and I am happy to go with the 4.5 city appropriation. I understand ultimately it's the mayor's decision on what gets appropriated on the city side. So you know, we are basically approving a budget that we feel confident in. But, you know, ultimately it's up to the mayor to decide. But I would just say that, you know, to me, some of the points made about, you know, future uncertainty, to me, that's a reason to go with a slightly higher city appropriation this year, so that we are keeping, some balance in other funds where we can stave off potential future dips in other funding sources. But all that being said, I appreciate the process. I appreciate the staff, updating the materials for today's meeting, so we're clear on what we're approving. And I think, overall, I thought it was a good process. So appreciate the back and forth.
Anyone else? All right, let's do a roll call vote. Ms. Yell.
Mia Reardon,
Present.
Sarah Hall,
Yes.
Andrew Boulder,
Yes.
Brian Callahan,
Yes.
Brianna Higgins,
Yes.
Kathleen Shaw,
Yes.
Juliet Walker,
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. At this time, I move that, we will enter executive session for the purpose of discussing possible litigation and or legal matters, and we will not reconvene in open session. And
We need a roll call to do that? Roll call to one.
Yeah, gotta go
Yeah.
roll call.
Right, Joe?
then that.
second prayer.
Second.
Okay, this is for executive session, Mia Reardon,
Yes.
Sarah Hall,
Yes.
Andrew Boulder.
Yes.
Brian Callahan,
Yes.
Brianna Higgins.
Yes.
Kathleen Shaw,
Yes.
and Juliet Walker.
Yes.